We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. So I decided to be a little different, and I'm hoping I'm not too loud. Doesn't look like anybody's checking, so I'll stick to my infamous one ear in, or one bud in and one bud out. Past podcast, back at y'all again. Like I said, I wanted to do this, but I hadn't really stuck to the initial process of it. But now that things are kind of working out the way they have, I went ahead and decided to work on my process of doing podcasts from different locations. So I have been doing most of my podcasts from one remote library when I'm doing my weekly messages. But today, I had a little bit of downtime, a little bit of free time, and decided I would go to a different venue to work on my podcast. So I've decided to just set up the mic, look out to the crowd, and I'm at a different library, I guess is the best way to say it. It just kind of worked out being luck of the draw to be able to get the room at the time that I did, and just kind of have everything work out the way it did at the time that it did. So no need complaining about the obvious, just kind of embracing and accepting it for what it is. So usually I'd have to run and get my notebook and figure out what the topic is, but I've kind of been on the fence, and I think I'm going to save the other topic for tomorrow, but I'll go ahead and give y'all kind of a teaser. It's going to be about toxic ships or toxic relationships, and that will be a very, very peace-based podcast. That's the best way I can say it, describe it. I've really seen how important it is. I've kind of talked about it a little bit in other podcasts, but I'm gonna really chew into it and talk about it a little bit more in that episode tomorrow. So you definitely will want to tune into that. But today's episode is gonna be a little different, and it's gonna be a little unique because I did state to you all that I'm looking at the possibility of taking a trip. I talked about going to Italy, I talked about going to California, but I also have home. So home for me is Virginia, Cap City. Been here pretty much majority of, if not all, my life. And I decided, and I've thought about it, and I've kind of been in limbo about what my next move or my next idea would be in regards to being here. And one thing that's triggered my interest and kind of sparked my attention, and I'm still kind of working out the kinks mentally, which is going to require me to do a lot of networking and a lot of lack of introvertness. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it's going to be a word today. But I would like to be a part of, if not start, my own gaming tournament. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, when you say a gaming tournament, like, what exactly do you mean? Well, there are different games that are out or that come out each year, such as Madden, NBA 2K, Street Fighter, Smash Brothers, things of that sort. And I would like to get possibly be able to rent or have a venue for a specific period of time and just mainly host a tournament at that venue. Plain and simple, it's an opportunity that has been missed out on. We have a couple of places here. We do have KLG Gaming Lounge, which I adore. I just love it. Like, I love it, and I haven't even been there yet, but just the idea and the concept of it from what I've seen in photos and them hosting a couple of tournaments, it looks like it has the capability of being something worthwhile, which I definitely will be looking to take a part of possibly this coming weekend if able. So I've thought about that a little bit. And another place that I've been to is known as The Forge. They have a Twitch page, RVA Forge, and I've gone to their venue to check out a few matches for Super Smash Brothers 4, and it's pretty much just a bunch of guys all coming together, getting their gaming on, and just enjoying the environment of being around other people who like gaming as well. So it's definitely sparked or triggered my interest as something I would like to do. But I know with doing it, I can't just do it by myself. I'd have to do a lot of things that normally I would sit and kind of give you all a outline of everything that I need, kind of have it all written out. But from what I've seen and from what I've looked at overall, I feel as though the things needed to be successful in doing that type of service would have to be obviously equipment. Equipment wise would be mainly cameras, TVs or monitors, systems, games, hardware and controllers. I may kind of make it a bring your own controller as long as it's not an illegal controller, and mainly just kind of the networking and exposure portion of it. So those things have all kind of triggered and hit my brain a little bit as far as wanting to do a tournament or host or set up a tournament, but I just haven't really thought it out or really put it into motion yet. So I've been just thinking about that and kind of wanting to see if that's something I'd look at doing. And the other side of it, like I said, I did mention the networking side. I do have a friend of mine who I've known for almost 5 years now, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be as into or jumping into an idea or an avenue like this, because it's not even looking at doing it based on money, because that's not what the end result is for me. The end result for me is just more so exposure and just getting people an opportunity to say, hey man, I want a tournament for this game or whatever the case may be. And I'll kind of give you all I guess it's a story, but it's not a story. Well, it's a story because I'm gonna make it a story. But anyway, when I was a kid, I worked at the Boys and Girls Club with other kids, and volunteered and was a member and things of that sort. Well, one year I had a Sega Genesis, and I decided it would be in my best interest to go ahead and host and set up a video game tournament, which at the time the big game of the hot commodity was NBA Jam Tournament Edition. And you kind of put the rules into play from the beginning. Couldn't put in any code. You couldn't use any special characters. You just had to play with the actual characters. I don't remember if anyone knew the code back then, but I knew the code, I believe, from playing, which was known as the dreaded. You could change your characters or change your team each half. But I believe that no one knew about that cheat code at that time, so it wasn't something that really anybody thought of doing. But I mean, we ran the tournament. It went pretty good. I was pretty much the only person doing it. I mean, it was my tournament, and I was right there with the system the whole time because it was my system. It was all done on one system at one time. So obviously that was like in the 90s. Now with everything being the way it is, you want to have multiple systems ready, because then that way you can get people's games completed and then get other folks ready to start their next game. So I've thought this through and really looked at it, but I presented this idea just as something to look at as kind of like a big movement or a big project. I'm sorry, side note, because I'm going to be petty for a second, because I'm just me being me. I realized that I had reserved this room, and I guess someone else was attempting to try to get this room, but was unsuccessful at the time frame, because I kind of found it online and looking it up. And I just saw the person, they kind of gave me the look like, why did you take the room? But I know that's like a random sidebar, but of course I digress, because it's not that serious and I'm not even bothered by it. But what I want to say to everyone, or what I like to present as a idea is, and this is somewhat of a, I won't say a tangent, but it's somewhat of a add-on to why this is important for me sharing this with you all. We have a lot of skills and talents and things that we know how to do or are capable of doing, but we don't want to do it. And we find reasons or excuses as to why we can't do it, or we just don't take the time and really doing the research into finding out the process of getting it completed. Prime example for me, and I actually talked with someone today before coming to do this podcast about streaming, or just some, like with when I first did podcasting, my podcast was so unorganized and so all over the place, but it was still pretty good content in my eyes, but it could have been better. Like, and you always want things to be better or be improved upon, or whatever the case may be. So that being said, and that being addressed, and looking at it in that mindset, now when I work on everything with the podcast, I make sure it's as close to good as it can be. I like I told you all yesterday, I challenge someone about doing drafts or not doing drafts. Instead of just saying, hey, let me record this and then listen to it and see how it sounds, just record it and publish it right then and there and see what the end result is. And for her, that's going to be a new task. But when you're being given a lesson without knowing that the lesson exists, it makes it a much easier process, or a much easier thing to do in the long haul. And my friend today is no exception, because he's looking at doing, he wants to make streaming kind of his niche, or something that he wants to get into. And I think he'll be just fine doing it. I just have to get him to ease off of his perfectionism, which that's one of those things, either it's in you or you just you kind of break away from it over time. I truly have had to accept and realize that making a mistake doing something as small as streaming on Twitch is not the end of the world. But his thing is, he wants good quality, good bit rate, things of that sort. And I know I'm talking probably a lot of techie talk over some people's heads, and I don't mean to. But when you're doing something, you want it to be crisp. You want it to be clear. Like even with me doing my recordings on my podcast, yeah, I can sit and try to act like I'm not bothered by the background noise that I have. But in the same breath, it's still part of the podcast. So I still have to sit and do an episode. So it's not like I'm letting that hinder me from what I'm working on. So I'm just saying all of that to say to you that, and I always love doing these, because every time I do a podcast, or the daily podcast, it's me trying to get the story out and then trying to find a way to wrap it up without going too long-winded. But what I do want to say, or what I would like to share with everyone, is I hope those who are listening and those who are local, if they have any suggestions or any help, I do have, like I said, I have 2 resources that I'm going to be utilizing over the next couple of weeks, just kind of getting research. My main focus is, I don't want to do a tournament or do it by myself, because I'm still trying to, I don't even have half of the equipment to even know what I'm capable of doing. The most, I got a capture card and I got a microphone. That's about it. So, those things, yeah, they're good to have, but it's other quality things, or other things. It's other stuff you need to kind of get what you're trying to get done, and have it done to the best of its ability. So I do take those things into account, and I don't want to disregard or disown them like they're non-existent. So I'm just saying all of that to you all to say, if you happen to hear about the past podcast tournament, just say you kind of knew about it occurring or being addressed back on April 25th of this year. So that's what I want to leave y'all with. I hope everyone has been enjoying the day. Weather's kind of being iffy here, and I guess I should tell you all, the type of work that I deal with, one of my conversation pieces that I kind of avoid at all costs is talking about the weather. So it's always fun when I come on and talk about how the weather is, and I know I've kind of pulled that from one of my other podcast listens. But in hindsight, I just know today has been a pretty steady yet fluid day. I've been keeping a very level head, and it's been helping me get through a lot of things, as well as just kind of piggybacking and bouncing ideas. I've shared this with some people, and I'm going to share this again. I'm sorry, before I continue, let me make sure I remember. If you do want to check out previous episodes, they are on Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast. That was mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. If you're looking to get a host to start out with podcasting, I would recommend Spreaker. There are other sites that do the just as good of work, if not better. But this is my go-to. And most importantly, the microphone being used is the Blue microphone. I guess I've had someone state or confirm that they've had other experiences with microphones that they do and don't like. I've been comfortable and pretty satisfied with what I'm doing, so it works out for me. So yeah, that's just where I'm at. And I know, like I said, it's interesting where I'm doing my podcast, because I'm just kind of not looking at my laptop, just looking up and talking. So people feel like I'm looking at them, but I'm really not paying them any attention. So that's just where it's at. And if you are If you do have any ideas or any suggestions, please do send them to passpodcastbt@gmail.com. I do check my email and I do get information in regards to that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cap it off here. Thank you all for tuning in. I do appreciate it. I definitely will be catching y'all on the next show. Take care. We've done it once again. We finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Pass Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at passpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.